Well, hello. We started recording. Dominic's on a call. He will be joining us shortly, but it's 5 after 6. We've just opened it up. Hello, Mr. Doug Weisberg. Feel free to say
Hello.
anything you'd like. It's just the two of us right now.
Oh, okay.
How are you doing?
Congratulations on winning the trial election.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah,
Welcome.
yeah, thank you. Are you gonna participate in the next one?
Um, no,
No,
no.
too busy.
Yeah, I'm just not into the videos and the public face and all that sort of stuff. I don't mind having my, obviously my identity out there, but I'm just not as, handsome as, a lot of you guys are. So I'm shy in that way.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it's a bit of an issue with this whole process. It requires us to have a face in order to kind of counteract the Sybil attacks and sock puppets, I guess.
I understand. I understand.
Yeah. But, well, hey, I don't know, maybe there'll be a way to half obfuscate our faces if we wear glasses or something, or so you can kind of tell it's the person who matches the video. But for the trial election anyway, you could probably, because it's not an official election, so
The next one coming up isn't official. You guys aren't at that point.
no, not yet. We're gonna do another trial election. So July 17th is gonna be it can like the next trial basically. So I was the first trial, and then we'll do another one.
But okay.
So it's I think it's a few of us want to get going, but I think it's important we kind of build more of the actual numbers in our Eden group. Still aren't. I mean, we were thinking maybe we'd have 1,000, or at least that was suggested that it was possible early on. But we need to. So we're just broach. We just got over 100 this past week, so we're a ways to go to 1,000.
Right.
How's it going, Seth? But it's better anyway. I think doing some more trials and less on the line, work through the system, and there may even be another trial. This next trial is going to be very manual, like the first one was.
Yep.
But the Clarion team has done a lot of on-chain coding. So basically, the election will run a lot of it will run on-chain, including the randomization of the groups and how you'll vote. It'll all be done through your wallet.
Hmm.
So that'll be cool, but we'll have to test that too probably before we do an actual official election. So there may be a couple trials still before we get down to doing the first official.
Right. So I mean, you need 1,000 people in the Eden group to be, viable. Is that what you're saying?
I, I don't know. I don't. I mean, it's all. There's no way. There's no right answer. I think it's a lot of opinions. When this was first announced, I think that was the number that Dan had suggested.
Right.
Was we look to get to 1,000, and but that was in March, April. Like we're going way back, and I think it was just an arbitrary. I never asked Dan. I've never heard an explanation if there was like a really well thought out rationale. It seemed like a round number. The maximum number per Eden group is 10,000, so that's a hard and fixed number. But the number of Eden participants to trigger the first official election, it's kind of arbitrary, I think. So we could do it with less, but I think part of it though is the funding, right? So how is Eden going to be funded? And if it is block producers through agreeing to fund it through an increase in inflation, I would imagine they'd want to see some more representative participation in Eden.
Hmm.
Um, I would think, right? Like if they're going to give up all of the communities, I mean, inflation affects everybody who's a token holder. So if Eden isn't a large enough chunk of token holders, then is it deserving of inflation that has to be paid for by everyone else? Again, all opinions.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, why wouldn't it be? It's a expression of the user community. It's a form of governance. I think it's asking for quarter, what was it, a quarter of a percent
Yeah,
in
that's it.
inflation? That's not, that's not unreasonable. I would think
I,
block
yeah,
producers would want to support that.
I'm with you. I think Wales would too. I mean, that's where it's like this chicken and egg thing where Eden seems to me if it I mean, the risk is if it gets gamed and someone gets in who you can't trust and they walk away with a bunch of money, then I could understand the apprehension, right? Because we haven't proven this really. I mean, my small little trial example is far from the evidence needed to say you're going to turn on the tap for 10 million bucks a year or whatever it is, depending on the token price. But at the same time, if it does work, which I think it will, and many of us who are participating thinks it can continue to work, then you're going to turn that money into projects and development on chain, which should help sentiment and increase adoption and therefore raise token price. So it's certainly a good use of inflation, and it's not a lot, like you say, right? 0.25%. That's kind of a drop in the bucket.
You look to not do, 0.25, maybe because the group's smaller,
Do less.
yeah, maybe it's less than that and won't freak out the block producers and it'll sort of,
Yep.
grease the wheel. Um, I mean, I've been following along and it's okay. I mean, to start out, smaller. I think the issue's probably funding. If funding was kind of assured, you might have, more folks who aren't camera shy to participate, I would think.
Yeah. It's so novel. Like when have you ever? I've never seen an experiment like this exactly.
No, well, I mean,
So,
nor have I.
in the crypto space of all spaces where pseudonymity and anonymity sort of have been kind of norms, so a lot of the existing crowd is going to be geared in that sort of mindset.
Yeah, I would try to get block producer support and just maybe, a lower amount of, of the funding. So,
That's a good idea. I wonder, yeah, and I'm sure you know what, it's a very good idea, and I'm sure they maybe thought of that, or it's hopefully come up. If there is resistance from the BPs, then okay, how about less? Because that's a good. We don't need 10 million bucks a year. I mean, we could start. We've done one test election for 10. It had 10 grand, and now at the token price, the next one's going to be less than that, even though it's twice as many tokens.
yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. It just needs to, spark needs to be lit. You guys have lit the spark. I mean, I watched the rounds. Um, I saw that you committed some of the initial, I guess, the prize on the trial to John with his Power Up app.
Yeah.
And I know John. John's great. I've worked with John on the Vigor project,
Okay.
so I have had a very good experience with him. He's talented. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
So I think that was a good use. I mean, Power Ups. I use it. Um, I think it's been effective. We just need to get the user base more organized. So I applaud the effort, and I
Yeah.
was hoping to be more involved as it kind of initiated. But as I say, I'm just not into. Obviously, I don't mind being recorded. I'm just not into the visuals. Though I did get a haircut since this started, so I went quite a while without a haircut. With the pandemic, etc. So,
Hey,
but even still, I'm just not into the visual aspect.
I'm wearing a hat, so I hear you on the haircut. Um, yeah, I mean, you're right. I don't know what to tell you. Like to try to, I'd like to convince you because it seems like you're definitely interested. You've worked on Vigor, so you're into the chain. You'd be a good person even just to vote for someone else in the first round. So it'd be nice if we could find a workaround for that type of thing, like
Yeah,
wearing glasses or I don't know, like how
I
you'd,
wear glasses anyway. But no,
yeah,
I mean,
ones where you cover your eyes. I don't know. Yeah.
yeah, no, I understand where Dan. I mean, you know, have had exchanges with Dan about the process, but I haven't actually suggested. I know a smaller amount of inflation. I know that I don't really know has anyone polled the block producers as to how they you know, how they would feel about allocating any amount. I know that Eves was, you know, he was pretty influential, but he's kind of stepped back from things. But I had the sense from Eves that there was, you know, there was some support in terms, you know, I wouldn't know if there was consensus yet, but there's definitely interest from DPs to
Uh,
see this
yeah.
develop.
Well, a couple of the I mean, Aaron from Grey Mass he's in the Genesis team, and they're I guess they're not top 21, mind you, but yeah. So it's a great question. We heard early indications from I think one of the calls that Dan was on with the block producers that they were supportive, but that was a while ago, and you know who knows? I mean, I think they were asked sort of in a group setting, so who knows how they individually think, you know, behind the scenes. And things have changed a lot since then. I mean, at the time, it was I don't think we've grown as fast, so I think that would be a detractor. And so maybe we're smaller than we thought we'd be, so less inflation would be more reasonable. Because it's hard to argue, and except for it could get gamed. You could just say, oh, this system worked once. That Chris guy didn't run off with the money, but the next guy he will or he might, right? So let's wait and see. So I don't
I
know.
don't know that it's a case of somebody running off with them. I mean, yeah, I don't. I never met you before, and you've, you know, as I say, I've been following it along, so I see you pretty active in the Telegram chats, you know, promoting participation in Eden. You know, you've been trying to recruit me. Um, you know, I think, and I don't think you, I mean, you made a decision to support a pretty useful, um, you know, DAP.
Yeah.
Um, so, you know, the first test of it, I think has been, you know,
First
has
one's
been
good.
shown to be good. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm obviously biased, but yeah, I think the first one turned out well, and I think that I mean I'm committed to helping promote this because I think it's a wicked system that can be applied to so many other applications, and it will work. Like I think it does work, but that's just an opinion, right? And they're cheap, but I think you know that's why we do another trial. We do this. We just got to get the numbers up for the trial election. You know, that's the other challenge, right? We don't want the next trial to have less participants than the first trial. So we got to
Did
get
you have
people.
like 64 people in the first one?
It was 64 in the first one, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe you'll have you're over 100 now for, you know, Eden approved, right?
Yep, we got to get them all to participate. You know, some of them didn't participate in the first trial either.
Yeah.
There's a few there, but yeah. So hopefully, I mean, I think we just got to prove it out and do it again and see who rises to the top and what project gets represented, and hopefully it's another quick win, good project that isn't too fluffy, and then yeah.
Well, I know I'm not participating, so I'm not really helping a heck of a lot, but I think it's
Ah,
so good, and
that's
I
okay.
appreciate you know, the work that, you know, you have done and continue to obviously to do. And I think it's a good idea to get the user community represented in governance and not just have block producers. I mean, we built Vigor using a DAC. I mean, Eden is DAC-like. I know it's you know, described as an OS, but I mean, it's definitely DAC-like. And you know,
Yeah,
we built a pretty good DAP by being a DAC, and then we transitioned into a kind of an operating DAC. Sort of now we have block producers as custodians there, but we have the original DAC is still represented as just one custodian. So instead of the DAC Genesis members being in control, it's really, you know, BPs now that are, you know, taking care of the protocol that we created. So I don't know, I see some parallels, and you know, everything grows and evolves, and you know,
yeah. That sounds neat how Vigor worked out. I didn't
yeah,
follow it too closely, but
pretty,
that sounds pretty interesting.
yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's pretty, you know, what's a bunch of us all came together, and you know, we built something without, you know, no ICO, no money raised. I mean, we just everybody worked.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So you know, it strikes me Eden has the same kind of opportunity to do that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Are we are we still in here? Let's look at the oh, good. It's growing. See
On the
Dom.
on the call, yeah. Dominic's back from his call, looks like, and
Yeah.
Seth's on, and Patrick.
Yeah, hi everybody. I just some call I kind of had to get in here. People who are not often easy to get a hold of.
Duty calls.
But good stuff, Eden related stuff. Lots of good stuff happening, I think. We're making progress.
Very good.
I think did we introduce at all, Chris, the idea of what we were talking about earlier, or maybe having a discussion with people about organizing ourselves?
Not yet.
Okay.
Doug and I have been chatting, and Seth hopped on.
Yeah,
but
I
he's
know
in the
Doug.
background, and Patrick is on as well. So it's just a small group. I did send
Okay.
out all the chats there in the Telegram, see if anybody wanted to join.
Thank you.
But other than that, no. We just been chatting about
Cool.
sometimes people who don't want to turn on their camera. It's not an ideal format. Just trying to think of ways we could obfuscate faces to sort of still be civil resistant, but then have some sort of, because I know that came up before in a call. One of the guys, Abesh from he was somewhere in Malaysia area, somewhere around there, and he was saying that it's not ideal for them, like in certain countries where you just don't want to put your face on due to
Right. Are
potential
you talking
repercussions.
about membership induction or this?
Just the elections, just in
Okay,
general,
yeah,
just
yeah.
participating in
Okay.
elections, right?
Yeah, I would say, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the issue is that's what's been, the idea is that serves as our identity, right? That's our KYC, if you will. Hard to fake a face, although the very cynical people in US Gov were talking about deep fakes and how it can be
Right.
done with AI, and I'm going, oh my God, guys, if somebody goes that far, okay, that's great, but I don't think a deep fake is going to get super far in our elections. I don't think the tech's quite there. And if they spend that kind of money or have that kind of expertise, they could attack in a lot of other ways. That
Yeah.
would be less troublesome than deep faking their face on a Zoom call.
And what does it even get you? You still have to be trustworthy if you're going to get voted for. So
I know.
You changed your face. Are you an untrustworthy new face? What's the difference?
Yeah, I don't know.
Unless
All
you're
right, so
going
it's
to pretend
just
to be
the crew.
somebody else like Tom Cruise, you're going to show up as like some celebrity. Be like, of course you can
Yeah.
trust me, right? Like maybe he's not the most trustworthy. Bad example.
Sure. Why Cruise? Cruise is great. Well, I think there's things happening, but as you and I were talking about, I don't know, somebody have something to say?
Yeah, Seth wrote the thing. What happens if someone you do an induction and then have a face operation, like plastic surgery?
True.
Your nose is way smaller. What happened to your jawline? That's not
Right. What?
Super good point. Well, I think I heard though that
Did you do
after,
your nose?
yeah, right. After every election though, I think someone mentioned that you could do a new snapshot, like update the NFTs. So you have like a new round of NFTs after every election, and then there's like because
Oh.
people. Well, I think I saw one. People are using like really old, outdated photos, right, from when they had no lines on their face. They want to still look all collagen filled.
Yeah.
But it's like
Just
that's
look
not what you're
handsome.
cheating. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
No, I
Michael
wonder,
Jackson operations. Yeah.
election-based NFTs, that could just be, that could be an interesting way to do it. Could also be possibly another kind of create a little bit of a collectible thing, right? Like when
Yeah.
people actually win
badge.
rounds, and even if we only did it then, right? Because those are the people that we're supposedly trying to, right, trust more, right? So if you win a round, an NFT is created of you, maybe to just cut down on the workload. I don't know how hard that is.
Seems like it could be automated, but yeah, something like that would be kind of neat.
So there's progress. I actually just had a chance to talk to Dan. We spoke for actually a while. I think it was about an hour.
Nice.
And he's working. I know we're not necessarily experiencing a lot of public engagement lately, but he's working. There's been some progress on funding. Sounds like I'm not gonna toss anything out there right now because we know that's just kind of a shit show, if you will. People not understanding things are just always in flux and managing expectations, but it looks like there's a fairly good chance that we'll get some type of decent funding here. So I think that's still, I think we can feel the same way about that we felt when it was first talked about at the beginning, right? That it will happen. It's just a matter of how much and when.
Yep.
But that seems to still be the case, which is good. And then, just talking about elections and other things. And so we did end up having a conversation. Something you and I were talking about earlier, Chris, was the membership induction process and the invite process. Are we kind of keeping with the original kind of vision, or let's say agreement, that we all kind of came into this with, which was that, there's a certain level of trust. Ideally, you're inviting people that you already have, non-Eden relationships with. You've done other work with them or whatever, or possibly even friends. But, and Dan's mentioned lots of different things at different times. And it's always a bit this, these are the soft parts of this, right? Like, you're never going to perfectly define something like this with code or protocol. Like, okay, you have to know the person for 5.45 years, and you've done $3 million worth of business with them, and you guys have all gone to a swingers club together and seen each other nude, right? I mean, could be
Trust level
one way to look
100.
at it, high, right? No, but it's been from anything like, would you trust this person with your private keys? In which state I kind of said, well, I don't trust anybody in my life with my private keys, because the person I trust the most wouldn't know what to do with them and would screw it up. And the
Good
other
point.
people, I don't know. That's a big ask. I'm kind of conditioned from early Bitcoin days to like, no, you're never going to get my private keys. I don't care who you are. I wouldn't give them to Joe Biden, So, but then it's been like, well, someone you trust in your house alone. And that was kind of like, okay. But again, let's face it, that's going to be a relatively small circle. Certainly in a dispersed online global community such as we find ourselves in. So, what's more reasonable? And there were some good points, some things I hadn't thought about before. I don't know if all of you have, but I'll throw some of this out there, and then I'd like to hear other people's experience and how they feel the process has gone so far. Are we maintaining a standard that people feel comfortable with? Is it too much? Is it too little? But he was kind of saying things like, well, first off, and to our discussion earlier, being on camera is a deterrent, right? Someone who knowingly wants to be a bad actor really doesn't want to get on a Zoom call, again, unless they have access to this amazing deep fake technology that I don't have access to. But besides that, right, and that's true, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, that right there is kind of a pretty big, as I've been calling it, antivirus, if you will, preventative. Because once bad actors get in, we can have removal processes, but really, as with most harmful things, prevention is so much more desirable. Damage control is expensive, time consuming, disruptive. And again, by the time you get there, something's already happened. But that was an important point he made that just helped me think more in terms of, well, what if we're not really bringing in trustworthy people right now? Because I don't know the whole details of everybody, and I'm certainly not accusing anybody of anything, but I'm seeing trails that look like someone comes in to either a Telegram channel, maybe the community, uscommunity.org forums, kind of puts a bid out. I want to be involved. A couple people go, okay, cool. Let's jump on a call and make it happen. Right. I don't know if it's going that way. I don't know how much due diligence folks are doing with people that are previously unknown to them. And certainly this isn't in there, and it's never been about exclusion. It's just about conscious inclusion, right? It's just more like, hey, we all know that fully randomized anonymous groups haven't worked, right? These have been tried. They've been tried here in this community. They've been tried a lot of other places. You could argue that some of those blockchains might have reasonably efficient governance. I couldn't point to any that I feel really, really good about. I mean, at times I've thought that like Dash was a community that seemed to be doing okay, but then you find out, they got all these issues with their nodes and vote buying and all kinds of crazy stuff there. And, so anonymity, from my perspective, tends to breed corruption. and crime, frankly, or ill will, negative actions. It's, let's say, put it this way, it's far more desirable for bad actors to be in an anonymous environment than I think the gains of, say, freedom or protection that an individual perceives they'll receive by being in an anonymous environment, right?
Yep.
And we're seeing that.
For sure.
Some people are saying, hey, I'm in a, say, we'll call them a rogue state, right? You know, an extreme example. I'm a North Korean. I can only get on Telegram for 30 seconds a day, but I'm a big fan of Eden. Probably not true, but you know, that person clearly needs to be anonymous, or if it ever caught wind of Kim Jong, whatever's going on there right now, who's in charge, will slaughter them. Okay, big deal. But that's not what Eden's about right now, right? We can't, I don't think, concern ourselves too much with edge cases of that rare individual, because you can't break the on camera without breaking it completely, right? You say, oh, we're going to make an exception for this person. Well, then everybody else who doesn't want to be on camera is going to have a case. You know, it's kind of a bit of a line in the sand. So that was one thing he pointed out, though, that on a positive note, certainly makes it so that we don't need to be as concerned, maybe, that we absolutely have these deep relationships with everybody we're inviting. There are other things in play that prevent bad actors. And so I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you think about the process so far and how we've been doing? You know, enough? Is it too much?
I don't know. I think it's fair. I think you know what would be useful probably is to have it more, because especially when we had that recent event with Michael USA's profile pic being the logo. So like, I think it was good it happened, but then it'd be good to like reaffirm, you know, if someone does get in under you and they do some shady stuff, just make sure you're aware of what the consequences are. Because right now, I'm not sure how you just get kicked out, and is it forever? Can you pay to get back in? Like, what if you were a good person who was just trying to grow? Like exactly the example you used. Someone pops into Telegram, says, "Hey, I want to join," and all the really keen people are like, "Oh, awesome! We're really into this. Come join." And they get to know them a little bit on chat or something, and then but then it turns out they got screwed, and the person they let in was bad, because then they tried to walk away with whatever level of money they got. So are they kicked out forever? Nah, I hope not. Like maybe like a trial, and then there's cost, and so it'd be good if that was clarified, because then people would have maybe a little more concern about how serious they take it. I don't know what everybody else thinks, but I don't know.
I agree. No, I think that's very much something that people are not aware of. I don't think they're aware of, in a sense, how liable they are for the folks they invite. But at the same time, right, we don't want to create hysteria where people become afraid to invite. I think people are already a little intimidated to invite. To some degree, my criticism to that has been that making this bigger deal about a Genesis group was not the right way to go, because I think it automatically left some expectation to people thereafter that these 18 or 20 or whatever it turned out to be are kind of in charge, you know, or they maintain some sort of higher status, and they don't. I mean, Eden is exactly what it is. There's no member who has any more power, clout than anyone else, unless they're elected, in which case they simply have control of a portion of the community's resources to deploy. You know, and that's it. That's ultimately the maximum power. Now, if you get elected to the triumvirate, or say the top 3 in the election, you could potentially put forth bylaw changes, but those then need to be confirmed by the next group elected, right? And that's great. But like, that's kind of the extent of our power here, so to speak, right? And so I hope people are feeling empowered. Like, I or anybody else has no more right to invite somebody than the person who just joined. It's really just a matter of, do you think they're a good person to be in Eden? And I hope we're all at this stage seeing ourselves as kind of innovators, right?
Yeah.
On the curve. We're not even early adopters. We're before that. So we all do need to be hopefully pretty active about inviting people, because this is the hard part. It's the heavy lift. When you get to like the next order of magnitude, 1,000 people, you think, if half the people invite one person a week, you've got 500 new members a week, right? It starts going really quick, right? It's how these work.
You just run out of people, though. Like,
true. And that's how it's supposed to be, though, right? That's the other thing. Like, and that's what people need to understand, is that as you come in as a new member, that's a good point, though, Chris, that I think we also probably want to be communicating to new members, is like, it's kind of, the ball's been handed to you, because we've kind of all made our invites. We all meet new people along the way, but ultimately, my social circle is my social circle. I'm 46. Like, I'm not in college. I don't meet 20 people a week. I'm self-employed, so I don't have any workmates.
Not clubbing it.
No, I just kind of have my crew, and that's that. I mean, and my 14-year-old son's not interested, and my ex-wife doesn't know anything about crypto. We're doing these at
least. So. Like, we're doing this stuff at least. This is part of why we're sitting here talking, right? We're trying to get dialogue going and have new people become introduced to know each other.
No, totally. I'm not necessarily dogging our things, but just that, like, the nature of the beast is that the onus for growth will always be on the newest member, in a sense, because they have the potentially most untapped candidates, right, available to them, where it's hopefully assumed that at any given point that, for example, someone like myself who's had, a month or so or whatever to do invites, I've invited the people. Now, not entirely true, because we did all agree to not kind of stuff the ballot box, if you will, which I think was a good agreement for the original 18 or so that Dan invited, was that we wouldn't participate in more than 15 calls total, as an inviter, as a witness, whatever, just total, and so until we hit 100. But now that we're there, there's a few more, but really it's not like, I mean, I've brought in 9, 9 invites, and I've sat in on like 2 other calls, I think.
Yeah, you've done your share.
Yeah, well, that's okay. Not even about that, but just, I don't necessarily, though, want to add another 9, because then I could potentially be looking at 20% of the community was invited by Dom. Yeah. And whether or not that matters, we know it can, and that's the part I want to avoid. But of course, they know me, so I'll have a certain emotional, say, personal advantage with these folks and what's my greater chance of, if 20% of the community is invited by me, some of those folks landing in my election round, if I were to run, right, that could be, obviously corrupt in a sense. And I'm hypersensitive about that. So, we're trying to avoid that, but I think it's important that we empower, support, encourage, say, newer members to then go ahead and turn around and invite the people, at least the low-hanging fruit, as soon as possible, right? Is there anyone you were thinking about in your circle that's not yet a member that you think should be invited? Please get them invited ASAP.
Yeah, or get them to participate in the next trial, because maybe there's a few friends that we all have that are like sort of just on the fence, and so like try the next trial election, just see what it's like. It's a Saturday, take a couple hours, it's fun, and if you like it, then sign up.
Right. So what do you think about that? I didn't bring up the conversation that you and I were having around, is it maybe a good idea that between now and the election on July 16th, then the second trial election, that any of these sort of folks who are inquiring about Eden membership, whom no one already knows, do we use the trial election as the barometer and say, okay, great, that's awesome. Kind of here's how we're doing this right now. Since you don't know anybody, we'd like you to participate in the election. 1, that'll show you what you're getting into. 2, it's showing us you want to support this community, which is especially important at this stage. To have a ton of passive members in the first 100 or so doesn't bode well. Hopefully these are active activists, if you will.
We
But
want, yeah, they want them to show up for the first actual election, and the trial's on the 17th, not the 16th.
sorry, the
Just for anybody
17th,
listening.
17th, Saturday the 17th, trial election. So, you know, is that reasonable? Is that something we want to do? I don't know.
I think it's reasonable. It's like a bit of a carrot there. Like people who are new and they want to join and no one knows them. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
awesome, glad you're here. Come to
Mhm.
the trial election. Your chances of getting invited then are way higher because people who don't know you will
Are gonna have
50,
time,
50
right.
minutes of video, and some people will get to know you really good. Yeah.
Yep.
So that I think it makes sense. What do you? Anybody on the call? What do you think about that? Trying to slow it up a bit when we see some new people come in that no one knows, instead of rushing to try to get to know them. Maybe just get them to participate in the trial election. I think it makes sense. I see
I don't know if we're
Waxer
gonna
wrote here.
have much today.
Yeah, Waxa said he'd join without video too.
Right. Oh,
And dude, we gotta have video though, man.
I
So,
know. Just
proof of
I
human.
don't know how you I don't know how you get around that
I don't think you
for
can.
now.
Not if you
But-
don't want to. That's because it's how do you? Yeah, you can't solve for bots and sock
Mhm.
puppets and Sybil.
Right,
You-
Sybil and all that. Yeah, just beyond
What if you,
identity and liability.
What if you linked your EOS account, had made the initial donation, and had perhaps lesser privileges, so you didn't necessarily benefit as much as other users who were using video?
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting, actually, and I could see that. Right, it's sort of it's a different kind of vote of support, right? It's saying
Yeah.
something like, "Hey, I do support this. I'm an EOS account holder, but just for my own reasons. Mostly that you're a big time drug dealer, kingpin. I understand that. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. You know, and maybe it is that you can't participate, or maybe it is you can participate but you can't run, right?
Yeah.
Because you could participate and still vote and listen and speak and be a part of the discussion during an election, but just hey, you can't run.
Yeah.
I don't know, but probably I think the first step, just off the top of my head, would just be that you probably just can't be in the elections. Simply because, right, even then you could say, oh, well, that person can't run, but could they create a bunch of sock puppets to just be voters? You know, or
Yeah.
maybe that's it. Maybe that's the other
isn't-
way you solve it. They can be in it, but they can't invite anybody.
What about like a retina fingerprint combo? So you have to somehow like set up your wallet. So, I mean, so basically you do a retina fingerprint thing, which is, I mean, a lot of biometrics. But if it's on the secure enclave on your phone, I guess I understand it just stays there. But then use that as the ability to sign your transaction. So then
Fingerprint
you-
signing, maybe, or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and like even the eyeball thing, because then it's like for sure that's a person and that's a unique person, and that allow them to do the first round of voting, not any other than that, but at least they're a unique human. We've guaranteed that
Mhm.
part. And then they have a voice, and there'd be maybe like a voice match or something. I don't
Mhm.
know. That might be too complicated, but that would probably solve it for the first round.
What do you think, Waxy? You had some ideas.
Yeah, I think that would work. Similar to signing into your app. That would work. It's just I think there'll be quite a lot of people who don't want to necessarily go on camera, but want to be involved. So if
Can you
there's some
speak to
kind of
that?
hierarchy.
A little, and I'm not trying to pry. I mean, is it just a personal reason you have? Is it just risk? Is it you're shy? Can you give us a
No,
little
it's,
insight for your case?
Just work related at the moment.
Gotcha. Okay, fair enough.
But I'm sure there'll be other reasons. Some people might just be shy, or
Hmm.
but
Work-
if that's the
yeah.
case, then maybe they're not right to join the process themselves. Just thinking about alternative ways for more people to get involved initially.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And good thinking, because that is what we need, and we do need to acknowledge that. And on that note, I can say Dan's definitely thinking of this, because another thing we did talk about was I was asking for some clarity around what are the expectations for existing Eden members to participate in elections, because we're struggling with that a little. Even in the first election, I think I only had about 2/3 of the existing Genesis members actually participated in that first election. And now this was prior to us being able to do invites yet. That started literally right after the first trial election. You know, it was a little disheartening. Again, it was a trial, but you know, I needed bodies. We barely got to the minimum 64. because that's literally the minimum you need for this process, by the way, if anybody's wondering. To do 3 rounds, it is. And, you know, right now we're sitting, and I just checked, Chris, it was 60 about 2 hours ago, and only 3
Wait.
of those were non-members.
And no skin in the game though, right?
What do you mean?
Like there's no 1 EOS donation now to sign up.
No, there isn't. He decided against that. He mentioned
Yeah.
that originally, and then that changed. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
So, I
So
only
I'm
bring it
also
up
concerned
because-
with, because we did have a lot of signups. You're right. We had
That's-
140.
Yeah.
For the first one, and barely got.
That's-
We didn't even have half. We had like 40% actual show up, so it was like a 60% attrition. And I think that's pretty terrible. I've been kind of wondering myself why that might have been. I mean, because you had to go through a process of filling out a registration form, putting down your EOS address. Like, you know, it was pretty involved for someone, that many people, to then just like space or
Eh.
not
Yeah.
post. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't.
Perhaps placing a deposit would work quite well.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't turn up, you don't get your deposit back.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just drops into the pie. Well, it would drop into the pie anyway. That'd be the purpose of it. And that's the understanding of that's how Eden elections will be, you know, when they're official. You will make some kind of dues, if you will, for each election you participate in. But to finish that point, what he was mentioning as far as general participation was, there's not necessarily anything wrong with an Eden member who doesn't go to the election at all. You would think, well, that's a little lame. Well, no, because it's a vote, and it's a type of vote, and it is voluntary, right? They had the opportunity. They could have been involved. They chose not to for whatever reasons. And in saying that, said, I agree with the consensus, right, preemptively, that will come from this election. And we don't necessarily want to discourage that kind of support, because that's another way to support. And to your point, Waxa, maybe there's an extension of that concept, which is, are there people that just kind of want to donate and maybe just be involved in the discussions on Telegram and on the forums, right? Maybe even here, like you're participating right now, you're helping the community right now, you know? Does that make you, you know, we don't want to, I would say very logically and rationally, no one wants to exclude someone like you, right? That doesn't make any sense. We get it. You got some, you know, this is the world we live in. Crypto's not, you know, super mainstream, or, you know, you're on consensus, you work for the Ethereum Foundation and you're a mole. You know, you don't want people to know. I get it. No, I mean, you know, all bullshitting aside, we want you involved. So how do we accommodate that? And maybe it is just some restricted access.
And
right?
Doug was the same. Doug before you hopped on.
Yeah,
that's what we
dude,
were
Doug
talking
was
about.
instrumental. He's been
Doug,
here from the beginning. Doug worked
One.
his ass off early on to help make this all happen. He's been involved for a long time.
But doesn't want to do cameras.
I
So
know.
Another
And
example,
so
right?
we're not able to invite the guy. And I mean, legit, like, was in a small group of us for months, helping, participating.
Independence by design.
I know. And I know you're a huge drug kingpin. So let's be honest there. That's definitely your trade. Dope
I
dealer.
don't understand why the video component is an important part of the vetting process. I mean, I think if you're participating in the election, even, I mean, you said Michael, Michael used a logo or something, and that wasn't, Michael's,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, Michael's great. You know, I don't think I've seen him on camera. I mean, we worked together in Vigor, and I
Yeah.
don't know that we ever saw him really in any of our Zoom calls on camera, but I know he's real.
Right. Right. He's verifiable in other ways. And I get that. And in a point, Doug, you know, nobody was attacking Michael's, you know,
Oh, no, I wasn't saying-
viability, if you will. It was just about the process.
Yeah,
you
well,
know.
so if someone uses their real identity in their account, as an example, I use my name on my account. How does
Right.
that make me not? And the other thing is, in the election process, you're going to figure out, that's the whole point of the elections, right? Is to vet and come to consensus on who should move up in the round. I would find it hard to believe that the whole process wouldn't sort of weed out the folks that were inappropriate to have more responsibility representing the group.
True, true.
So
I think the idea is that, if there was a, slick sociopathic smooth talker like yourself who runs a global drug empire, you could do a lot of damage. And no, let's be serious.
I don't think so. I mean, you're being humorous and facetious there, but it's not. It's not really what all this is about. It's it's the process that should work to raise up people who have good community oriented
Mhm.
intentions,
Yep.
and you let the voting work. And the other thing we talked about, I think, a little bit before you were chatting, though I know I think you're hosting the call, is the idea of the inflation, asking the BPs to vote for a 0.25% inflation. That's
Mhm.
just probably too much to start out with, since Eden is starting out a little smaller than maybe Dan had envisioned or hoped.
Mhm.
A much smaller amount of inflation would be appropriate to sort of suggest to be easier for BPs to say, yeah, we want a user community to be able to express, governance ideas and be able to identify things that are good for the user community, which is really what I think, Eden's, goal is,
Yeah,
original goal was about.
without doubt.
Yeah, so just make it a smaller bucket. And the other thing is, it's really up to the discretion of the folks that, get the allocation of whatever those funds are to, do something good within the context of what Eden is supposed to be. You really can't dictate what they're going to do per se with the funds. One of the things I kind of observed in watching the rounds, I didn't participate, but in watching the rounds with, where Chris, he was pretty explicit as to what he would do with the funds. Ultimately, you'd want, I think, the Eden leadership as per vote to, I mean, do they really have to specify exactly what they're going to do to get voted up in the rounds? I think, I don't know, I mean, that it worked that way and it worked for this trial, but longer term, there's, especially if the funds become larger than, what was in I think what Dan helped put up for the first trial, you'd want them to, because the term is 6 months, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. So, you'd want them, hopefully they would be able to work with those funds over a longer period of time. I think the funds that
Mhm.
Chris got kind of got allocated and consumed pretty quickly.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
Right. It was 1,000 EOS. Yeah. No, you're right. I mean,
We should just trust the process to work and
right.
maybe not make the barrier to entry quite as high. I mean, I was in that, I think I actually invited you to that initial Independence by Design group. I think Data,
Yeah.
so to
It was
bring you
Data
in.
Junkie. Yeah. And
Yeah.
you invited me. Yep.
Yeah. And the thing that, so I was involved early, but the thing that reason I didn't really stay with it was Dan was talking about, like Genesis NFTs and, the whole video thing. And
Mhm.
I'm just not into really that aspect of it. So I sort of just
Mhm.
kind of stepped back.
Can you
What
give us a
about,
little insight there? Because that would be interesting too. I'd like to at least start kind of hearing the reasons, if you don't mind. Just, is it just discomfort? I just don't want to go there. Is it
yeah,
too
I just
soon?
don't, I mean, I don't know in terms of the video piece.
Yeah. Like, what is it about not getting on
I
camera?
just, you do a video and it never goes away.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just there. I mean, I'm pretty, public about all my EOSing. I mean, I use my name.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
Um,
Right.
you know, I kind of like the fact that the blockchain records my transactions. It's cheaper than hiring a bookkeeper.
Right.
But
Right. And you just don't feel
you
like
know,
you need to go further.
yeah, I just don't want to do the video
Sure.
piece. You know, I'm just not. You know, I, just not into it.
What
It,
I
it
wonder if, like, I wonder if we did. You know, we talked about now we'll have people sort of flag before they join an election whether they want to compete for money or not, right? So there's like this kind of pre-selection, so we'll kind of
Yep.
pre-sort so it's evenly distributed. What if we just have yet another flag for I don't want to go on camera, and then they also get equally sorted into the first rounds with the people who don't want to move forward, and it's all kind of just that first round has the less randomized, sort of slightly pre-sorted, and if you don't use your camera you can't move forward, like you forego the ability to receive funding,
Right.
but you can then still have a voice and you can still participate in that first round. Maybe that'd be yeah, we could maybe for a test election, something you could try.
I mean, why do we need to have people excluded if they're not on camera? You know, there was radio before there was television. I'm old.
Sybil attacks, I think, right? Isn't that
Yeah,
the main?
that's the idea, I guess. Sybil attacks.
I know, but don't you
But I
know if
don't
you're
even know
dealing
how
with
would
a
you Sybil
real?
attack?
Yeah, I mean, don't you know if you're dealing with a real, you know, a sincere individual? First of all, people are invited to participate, so there is this
Yeah,
kind
that's
of
the first
pre-screening
filter.
process.
You're
Yeah,
right.
and then you know you're not going to move up in the rounds if you don't have something good to say,
True.
and you got to have something good to say. You know, when you had 64, where there were there were multiple rounds, so you had to have something good to say 4 times,
Yeah.
and the bulk of the people are, you know, I mean, folks who were in the rounds were, you know, great folks. I mean, you know, I mean, and ultimately, Chris, I didn't know Chris before, um, you know, before the election. I watched the rounds, but
Mhm.
you know, John was in there. I mean, you know, I'm a big fan of John's. I mean,
Mhm.
you know, he has some really good folks in there.
Yeah, and Chris was a nobody, and he got it through.
Nobody.
And look at him; he's
Yeah,
a
and look at
superstar now.
he's great. I mean, look at all the, you know, the work he's been doing, you know, since winning that to help, you know, build this up.
Yeah, no, true. I mean, everybody's, happy. I mean, we don't want his head to get too big, but he's an
No.
adequate choice, an adequate outcome at least.
I'll never win again anyway, so it's fine.
Now you know me too well.
The way you've handled yourself, you know,
I've done a great
I mean,
job.
if I was in a round with you, I'd be supporting you.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Doug. See, all the reason you should join. I need more guys rooting for me.
I need more
Give me a
votes. He's campaigning already.
Campaigning, yeah.
He's a nobody.
But you raised some good
high
points.
Ambition.
You do raise good points, and maybe if there's especially if you're inviting people because you know them, and then if I have my face and everything on NFT, and I invite somebody who's a non-camera person, I guess it kind of falls on me if they end up being like the same sort of
Sure. Well, it does anyway, right?
Invitees.
You're right.
Yeah, I don't know.
And maybe there's just there should be a different level of caution. For example, again, I'd be comfortable inviting Doug because I've had numerous conversations with him over Doug, 2 years now, probably.
Oh yeah,
Off and on.
Yep.
We've talked about lots of things, and Vigor and EOS and life and Warbly and everything in between. So, so I'd be comfortable because I've had a lot of interactions with him. And if it's somebody putting together some elaborate fake, well, hats off, my friend. You've done a marvelous job and you've wasted a shitload of time on it. So I hope your eventual score is useful.
Yeah, I think that the concern about having the process gamed is a little, we're really at the genesis state, and it's still obviously it's in a genesis state. Just to lighten up the. There are 2 people on this call that are, not into the, the visual aspects.
Right.
So that you probably have 2 more people participating, right there. So it would probably be, you've got 100 people in the group now, maybe Eden entries are a little over 100. I thought I heard earlier.
Yeah.
Or read
Yep.
somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah. So you'd probably end up with 130 or 140.
Sure. Well, you certainly open it up, right? But again, I think then that's the idea of, you know, when you get to a certain point, you have so many people not appearing on camera, not, you know, not having an identity process that's the same as the others. What does that kind of land? I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's a bad answer to the question. And someone in the chat mentioned the Europe chain ID service. You know, similar for actually, you know, what we had done before at Werbly, now UX. You know, UX Network has a couple thousand people confirmed through KYC. But the cool thing about that is you didn't have to give your photo to everyone, right? It's in a sort of a trusted database, and it's a copy of your ID, right? And as you're saying, Doug, that's not out there for the universe. You know, that's heavily protected and regulated by legal laws for them as
Right.
private property, that if they were to ever release any of it, would be in a lot of trouble. But why couldn't you reuse that? I mean, hell, that's good enough for you to now go move millions of dollars around if you want, you know. Or again, the Europe chain, I'm not shilling here, you know, for UX, anything like that, right? A somewhat portable digital ID. I mean, you could argue that someone who goes through any version of a KYC has been far more vetted for their identity than what we're doing here. All right. I could just be using a fake name, for example.
Right, but why is, is Eden KYCing? I mean, maybe.
I just mean as an alternative that's a pretty heavy comparable identification mechanism that for someone like yourself could possibly be used as an alternative identity verifier, right? And it still solves the issue. I don't know, you know.
I don't know. I just think that the rounds themselves are the best secondary qualifier that you're dealing with, because people are expressing themselves and what their vision for, Eden is. And the other thing is, once you've elected these folks for this period of time, it is up to their discretion as to how they deal with the funds. It's like there isn't, you're not voting per se for how the funds are to be used or deployed. I mean, we were kind of, I guess, in the mock.
Well, in a sense, as anybody, you may make some promises in your election, and you'll likely be judged as such, in a sense, if you were to come up for re-election and you did something totally different. But you're right, though. You could still potentially change your mind and do something great, and everyone will go, yeah, okay. Yeah, we voted for, Doug to do X, but he did Y and it was still awesome. So you're right. You're voting for the person above all else.
Exactly. So, once the group makes that decision, it's, it's reasonable. I mean, you've delegated that authority to those good actors, hopefully. And, there's a bad actor, they're not going to get it. They're not going to get the, elected again.
Right. No, I mean, it's good points. And this is definitely the type of stuff that certainly is up for discussion. This is bylaw type stuff. I mean, at the current status, it's not to be changed lightly. But it's worth talking about because, it may very well be that, there are other solutions. And certainly, again, we want to encourage participation and we already have one good example, Doug, in you. You said you literally invited me, to this original channel of like Dan's little think tank. Where we were all working our butts off, trying to get this off the ground and, get people engaged and involved. And I mean, you got hundreds of hours into this, at least that I'm aware of. But you're excluded.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
When he asked for the video and he was talking about creating an NFT for the, the Genesis group, I was like, I don't really want an NFT.
No, that's okay. Yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts on this? The whole or maybe angles to the discussion that we haven't fleshed out? Cool. Well, I think, the other thing Chris and I have been talking about a little was, what happened to Chris? Is he still here? Did he just go off camera? No, I think he dropped. Oh, that's right. He had to go. That's right. He told me he's going to be leaving early. All right. Well, I'll try to be moderately engaging here for the last bit. Delegating tasks, right? Organizing ourselves in a way that, we do have 100 members, and we do have a certain amount of that group who are willing to work and put in additional, effectively volunteer time at this stage to do certain things. And for example, I've been tasked to try to get, at least at a minimum, twice as many people as we had in the first election. So that would be a minimum of 128 actually participating, which based on my other numbers means I probably need to be closer to 250 registrations. And it's just been a little hard. I mean, I'm doing that. It's not the only thing I'm doing. I'm working on lots of other things, and of course still trying to work on things that actually might make me some money to pay for my existence. But we probably could use like an election team, and how do we kind of self-organize around that? Because I'm mindful that Dan has certainly asked me to do this and kind of authorized me, if you will, as our existing lead of the project at this time. And that's great, but I'm very mindful of not like overstepping, right? Any bounds, because I'm not elected, right? I'm designated, but I'm not actually elected to do anything. And so, how do we go about that? Is it appropriate for me to, kind of organize a small team that's going to assist in elections and promoting elections, and, all that stuff, or, but maybe not that, because that's a bit of an easier sell, because again, Dan has told me to do this and he's publicly stated as such. But then stuff like, I think we need a membership team really to hopefully promote, right, and attract new members, to help with onboarding and continuing to smooth out that process, document it, answer questions. What about over time kind of membership customer service, right? We're going to need people to go to when we have questions. We certainly can't be relying on like Dan and the Clarion team. Like, do we want at this point effectively our best developers to be working on general customer service? No. But we have members who are willing to do that stuff. They're willing to, put some time into, whatever it may be, answer questions in one of the Telegram channels, and maybe act as a bit of a moderator, or the message boards, so what do we do at this stage to get organized in a way that people will feel good about, and you won't be kind of shooting yourself in the foot looking like a self-designated authority, right?
Oh, I mean, it's permission. Blockchains should be permissionless, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
You're, as an individual, you're welcome to do whatever you can to organize. I don't think you need to be elected to, bring this together.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're doing, yeoman's work. I mean, it's great. I just maybe think the expectation should be not set so high that they're not attainable.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of participation, and in terms of, asking the block producers to support some small allocation of inflation to the cause. It's okay to start out smaller. And I think if people saw that they were, for example, if you're putting a lot of time into this, unless you're independently wealthy, you need to be compensated in some fashion. It's okay if all the funds that you get allocated, if you're in the triumvirate, at the higher level,
Mhm.
it's okay to, pay for some of your time.
Right. Right. What does that look like? I've wondered that, like, because that's something that I've talked about with people off and on. And so far, the actual consensus is that it wouldn't be prudent to run for self-funding, to basically just fund you to be say a part or full-time Eden volunteer.
Well, why? Why is that not
I don't
seen as
know.
an
I don't know.
appropriate
It was
thing
just
to do? Like,
it was seen as maybe being probably hard to pull off. I mean, I think on the one hand, the tough part would be if what you've, especially, right, let's take the example of someone who's been volunteering, been putting their time in to do things, and maybe isn't as visible. Right? Like maybe in my case, I could possibly pull it off depending on the group I was in, because I've been very visible and very out there. But I'll give you an example of Drill Sergeant Zeus is what his handle is in Telegram. He's doing a lot of behind the scenes work. I bet nobody here knows that, but he reached out to me early on. He helped me with the first election. He's continuing to do stuff. He monitors the Reddit, and I know that he wants to do this, and he doesn't have an income right now or much of one. And, but I bet if he ran on that, I don't think he would get anywhere.
well, yeah,
Very interesting. Very interesting.
I'm sorry.
Very interesting all what you say now, because there are a lot of values in that. When you go with Eden, someone want to go just to have a voice into the group, and let's say, I prefer to say voice to vote. It's a kind of vote when you voice in your group to reach the consensus. So you are going for that. Maybe you are going because you want to have some funds to do something. So you have to be very accountable if you are going to the next level, because that's become very, you have to testify, you have to deliver what you say. You have to be very reliable. I was thinking those days about Eden a lot myself. You can also say no, I don't want to do. It's also reliable because you say no from the beginning. So that's reliable also to sometimes say, no, I cannot afford, I cannot do. And if you say, yes, I want to do, so you have to deliver your testifying. So yeah, I was also thinking about the face, about to show our face and picture. And I think the most important is to show a picture of our person. That's very important. Also, if we are an entity, maybe a startup or let's say, an entity, it's good to show our face because we are running ourselves. So it's good to have a pic of ourselves. And after that, Waxa, you said, maybe I want to run with Eden without to show me. Yeah, that could be another side process. Yeah, that could be. Yeah, very interesting time. And for the next election, we cannot be too much exclusive. Yeah, we have to.
Well, that's
I
definitely
think,
not supposed to be, right? That's open
Yeah.
still. So that's open to anybody. That's
very open. Yeah.
we're there with that. All you got to do is have basically an EOS account, Telegram account, and give us an email, because we learned from the last
Exactly.
one. It's hard to communicate with people just via Telegram.
Oh yeah.
Not everybody sees everything. You want to be able to give people some email updates, email them the link, all that. But
I was inviting someone from Asia today, China, a China woman, very fantastic woman, artist in NFTs on EOS Atomic Hub. I was not knowing this woman before, and I have just chat with her in Telegram to see if she has understood what does it mean, why she want to go. The reason were very fantastic. And yeah, she has read the PCT. She has introduced herself on community.org. That I think to introduce ourselves on community.org, it's very, I would say, reliable to do that. This is not required, but that could be a good incentivized mechanism to see if the people are ready to do some skin in the game. That's
Right.
beside the price, besides the 10 EOS to donate when you want to be a member. I say for the process to be a member, to be invited, you have to put 10 EOS. But beside that, if you can explain a little bit what are your values, what is your vision for Eden, why you want to go with that. That could be just a couple of sentences. That should not be a Bible. That could be very short, a stance. And that was the case with this woman. That was very
Right.
fantastic.
Yeah. No, I see it. I think so. What about directly though? The thoughts were you kind of went on. I know you were commenting on the various topics of the meeting, but you know, this idea of people running for election to be funded to basically, because I think the part that people are forgetting here is we effectively need an ongoing admin team, right? That's working in the backdrop as we are now. That's not really elected. It's more like funded, right? Because you don't want someone to you don't want somebody to be doing what I'm doing every week, for example, or even every month. Like, oh, I'm running election. Okay, just throw in a new person and then throw in it, right? It's the continuity, the learning curve, you know, whatever that comes with, at least until we get automated, which you really won't need anybody like me. But it's just an example, right? Work, we know, gets better done when people do it consistently. You know, they develop efficiency, right? And all of that. And so we know that eventually there'll need to be kind of a perpetual team that's kind of hired and funded. But what about that person putting themselves forward? Like I could see somebody, for example, saying, I want to do a bunch of promotional events about Eden. You know, I'm going to run webinars, I'm going to run in-person meetups, I'm going to do all these things. And, you know, it's going to take me a lot of time. I'd like to be funded for that. And so, you know, that's maybe a more direct idea, but then what I think is going to be the really hardest part, assuming, let's say somebody gets over that and they don't see it's a problem to ask for funding directly. How much do you pay people? Because that varies widely in an international organization. You know, for example, I live in Maryland, which is one of the most expensive states in the United States. So very, very high here, right? And so, you know, what I might put out there versus say somebody who's living in, let's say an extreme example, Kenya, you know, or even like Ethiopia, right? In Africa, right? Maybe $2,000 a month, for example, equivalent, you know, say 500 EOS at this rate or 600 EOS. That could be really good. That could be solid. That's enough to sustain them, and they can do the work and they can put all this energy into it. But that's like nothing for me. I mean, I
for you in US,
2,000 a month's like nothing.
It's a peanuts. It's a peanuts, But you know,
so I don't know. How do you do that too? And how are people going to feel? I think it's going to be hard, is my point. You know, I think you're going to have to be funded by other reps, most likely.
It's difficult for me to envision what could be the incentivizing for other people, because myself, maybe I am a little bit too much implied, because in my case, I have a startup since 2018. And at the same time that I have funded my startup as a CEO and a CTO, at the same time, I have decided to run with EOS Nation as a EOS Nation ambassador, and that was voluntary, totally not funded. I was aware of that, and
right, you're a volunteer.
I was totally different. mindset. I was running only for the money. I was doing anything if I have not paid. If someone asked me, Patrick, can you do a software, an application? I directly asked for that to
Sure.
know if I will be paid.
Right.
And suddenly, I don't know, I was thinking, okay, I have another company, another startup since 2006, so that's help. With that, I can eat. That's my food. I can
Right.
eat. And all what I am doing with what I am doing, it's totally volunteer. And I do that for what? Because I love that. I love to educate. I love to do some knowledge transfer. I love to understand the things. To understand the things behind the words. What does it mean exactly when we speak of something? And after that, if I understand myself, I will be able to explain to someone else.
So that's good.
So
I mean,
I run
that's
for that, and I don't expect funds. When I was writing to you, Dominic, and also to Chris into the eoscommunity.org, I have said 2 times the same thing. And I have described that next year I will do 6 workshops. I will do that. Hidden or not hidden, I do that since day one. And yeah, I want to do that. Why? Because I love that. And if I have funds, fantastic. If I have no funds, I will continue because it's beyond me. It's beyond me. So
yeah.
when you see what is doing Maurice Vanegas in Venezuela, for example, he's not based in Venezuela, he's in US, but he's helping the Venezuelan guys, girls, and he is giving a lot of his time with his family to create all this EOS marketplace, EOS microloan, all these things. He do that for what? He do because at the base layer, he is a Colombian. He wants to expatriate Colombian, going into the US, learning about the Federal Reserve, doing a documentary, Jekyll Island.
Okay, where are you going though, Patrick? I love you, man, but you're kind of rambling here. So what's the example? I know that some people do it for
I
love,
want to say
but...
he do all that because he want to help the people.
Sure.
So if you want to help the people because you have already experienced something difficult, you will help the people. If you have not experienced something difficult yourself, you will never know what does it mean to be in the shoes. You cannot know what is it to be in the shoes of someone that has experienced difficult things.
Okay.
You will know only that when you have yourself experienced it. And at this moment, your mindset will totally change because maybe you were a totally materialist guy before. And after that, you become someone more altruist. You want to help the people. But
right. But how does that help the person who can't live? Right. No one volunteers when they're homeless, really, or maybe occasionally that's happened in the history of the world, but I doubt it's happened much. Right. So that's all we're talking about is that there's outstanding people and we need an org. We're going to need people, all this stuff that you guys have seen happen has been done by people for free. They're not going to keep doing it forever. Some are already not doing it anymore. All the documentation you see on Notion and everywhere, right? That was all created by us and others, Doug and other people early on. And, how do we fund those people? And how do we create a standard that makes sense? Because like we're saying, the amounts are totally different.
One idea.
That's a hard thing. What would people pay? Mel, what would you pay me right now for what I do? Seriously, off the top of your head, if I was full-time, what do you think I should make?
For you, obviously, where you're living, you're going to want a lot more, as you were saying earlier, than in a sort of third party and a third world sort of country. But I was thinking like a freelance website for EOS community. So we had everything on there, and then we could say this is going to be, and we need this amount of work needs doing, and people can bid for it.
Yeah. But is that going to also drive people like me out, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's the reality.
Does it matter? I don't think it matters. As long as the work's up to quality.
As long as it's up to quality, right? Right. So you probably could get somebody much cheaper
Yeah.
than me,
And that's
who lives
better for the
somewhere.
community anyway, if we're doing it
Sure.
for less money.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe you're right. That's the way. That's the way the jobs go. And that's even if you're, say, hiring, right? Let's say, like in Dan's example, who will be in charge of this bigger budget, at least for the first year, you know, even if he hires someone, it could probably be done as a potentially about a bidding contract.
Yeah,
Right?
it doesn't have to be the cheapest one. You go for
No,
the quality.
it'll be a combo, right?
Yeah.
Quality. Right. Like you said, I mean, you're going to get, if it's an extremely rare skill set or set of experiences or whatever, and, you know, there's only one person on earth and we really need it, it's 50,000 a month, we'll pay it. But
Pay it,
like you're
exactly.
saying, if there's 20 people and somebody can do what feels to be the equivalent for 10,000 a month, well, 10,000 a month it is.
It's a no-brainer. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you go like something like people per hour, there's loads and there's thousands of people on there, but they're sort of star rated on their quality. So
Yeah.
if
And we could have a
obviously-
similar thing, right? Like a
Yeah.
rating system. Sure.
yeah, so if they're good quality, they're doing good work, then we're going to get more work, aren't they?
Yeah. No, you're right. So maybe
So
that's the
maybe
answer
it
to
could
some
be-
of that Eden,
Yeah.
Eden freelance, if you will.
Yep.
Yeah, I
That's a
like that.
project.
It puts me out of a job, but I like it.
You always have work. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, there are a lot of hidden freelance at the moment in this community that are doing mind mapping. They are doing some recapitulation of the things that are on Notion, on edeneos.org, on eoscommunity.org. You have different sources.
Yeah, translations and stuff. Yeah, there's been a bunch of that for sure.
Yeah, education, videos, all that. So we are a lot. Drill Sergeant Zeus, for example, shout out to him. It's a fantastic.
Yeah, I mentioned
guy.
him earlier as an example.
Yeah, Drill is also from Switzerland. And yeah, we do all what we can, and we are not paid for that. So the day where we will be paid, I will be motivated the same, but the money sometimes can change the mind when you have the money in play, because you expect maybe more than you should expect sometimes. So when you are doing the things not directly with the money, but first with the heart, the soul, and the mind, that's very nice. Very nice.
Sure, but we
experience.
can't measure that, right? So that's like to Mel's solution. It's going to be
Yeah.
some combination therein. There are certain
Combination,
jobs
yeah,
that you
yeah.
just want to get the job done. It's like you said, a
agree with
translation.
you. I totally agree.
You know,
Totally.
translation is all about that person's ability to translate. It's a very specific skill. Are they good at it
Oh,
or
yeah.
not?
Yeah.
And I mean, you're really going to go for the cheapest person. You don't have to care
Yeah.
much to do a good translation, right? I mean, you either
Yeah.
complete it or you
Yeah.
don't. Or code is probably another example. You don't really have to love Eden to code well. Now, I will say that what's definitely going to be put in by Dan is this. If you are going to hire somebody who's not an Eden member, there's going to be a tax. I think it's 5%.
It's okay.
I'll
And
keep it
so it's gonna-
internally. It'll be better.
Yeah, and so that you'll so if I had to hire somebody outside for 100 EOS, I'm gonna have to pay 105, and that's or whatever, or 5. I'm sorry, 5 will go back into the treasury, 95 will go to the person, or however I make it up. But I'm gonna have to add 5% to the budget, and that'll go back into the treasury from my budget, right? If I'm elected.
Mhm.
Alternatively, we can try and sort of get them to join up and come on
True.
board.
Exactly, right? And that's the incentive. I mean, if
Mm.
you're well, how this hopefully works is that if you really believe this person's the right one to hire for whatever initiative you're funding, I would hope that you are choosing somebody that you think can be, you know, an Eden member, right? And so, yes, that would be the ideal. You then onboard them, have them become a member, and then no problem. But he was calling it an import-export tax, which that makes sense. We're forming a little bit of a nation here, right? A society, a little, where we're using our own money, we're using our own consensus process for governance. I mean, we don't have a military, but some countries don't either, right? But it's really the concept. When you think about it that way, I mean, it gets pretty complex. That was something we were talking about today too. Like, there's a lot of things to start thinking about, right? The complexity of the structure kind of grows exponentially as you move along in some ways.
Yeah.
So we need to get a list of all the major items that need to be completed and start figuring out how we're going to sort of display that and how we can get the work done and who's going to approve it. I guess someone Dan would say would put someone in. I mean, he won't want to sort of do it all himself, but put someone in place to do that work for him. It's got the same sort of mindset.
Yeah, it'll probably be a combination, right, Mel? I could see there being a body of like we'll call it baseline work that the folks elected in the triumvirate are probably putting out there. Just say the back office keep the lights on work.
Yeah.
Right. And they'll either be hiring or paying people on 6-month contracts, however it works. And then there'll be, if you're elected, right, putting bids or jobs out, I bet. Hey, I'm trying to do this and I'm paying 100 EOs for somebody to do X. And then I think you'll have the opposite direction too, which is hopefully people putting themselves out there saying, I'd like to do X and I need funding, right? Because we want that, right? We want this to work in both directions where projects can, ask for funding, right? Like a worker proposal system. I mean, this is definitely meant to replace that and then some. But definitely that's one of the major things is, hey, we won't need a worker proposal system if we have this. You just go into Eden and you put yourself out there and there'll be a forum, I'm sure, for various things. We can organize that fairly easily. But you're right. The ultimate kind of project plan and roadmap in some ways, I know it's very well articulated from a software development perspective, say Eden OS at this point. Right. And for those of you who caught Brandon Fancher, he spoke on this call last week and also on Thursday's podcast, which I got to get those out to Chris. I just flaked. It was very clear from what he talked about that, the software roadmap is well articulated and well planned out. But what about the operations, say business, marketing, right? Which we know are all important. Having the best product isn't going to get us too far. Somebody's shuffling. Let me mute some people. They can always unmute, of course. It needs to be done. And that's what we were talking about earlier on the conversation, Mel. I don't think you were here, but Chris and I have been going about this. Like, do you just do it?
Yeah.
Is just do it. Just go make a list. I mean, I can make a list. I can make a project plan. But
definitely prioritize what we need. What's the most important things you want done and when?
Right.
Now. So let's get these things. Get these things done now. So I think prioritize what we need done and get this list together and get it going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Makes
we have
sense.
this call the other day. I don't remember. I was in another Zoom and we spoke about project management, take the project leader on that. And at the time that we are now from the election trial election, I think we are all open, but with a good mindset to do good let's say good promotion, but educational promotion at the same time. If you are an Eden member, already an Eden member, I don't say you are in the obligation, but that would be great if you can invite the most of the people that you can, to be a witness for the most of the people that you can. So I try to do what I can. I have only two hands, but I try to do what I can, as you, Mel, as you.
Yeah, well, obviously, we've only 100 members roughly, haven't we? So you imagine what it's going to be like if you got 1,000 or 10,000. It's going to be unbelievable.
Oh, I think for the election to be, I don't want to speculate, but if we have into the Eden community on the July 17 about under 50 people into Eden, that could be already a good
Yeah, I'm just talking about the witnessing side of it. So if you've got a large amount of people wanting to come on board,
yeah.
who's going to be doing all that work? That's what I was.
Yeah, it would be
sort of
good to
saying.
organize that some
Yeah.
too.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
right, for sure, Mel. And one of the things we have noticed that is okay, by the way, just to get that out there and definitely let other people know, which I didn't do the first time. I brought in 9 people in a matter of a couple of days that I kind of had on my list, but you can get everybody on one call. And then you
Oh,
can
yeah.
just go person to person and get, because right, it takes 90 seconds, right? So you just basically
Yeah.
go, hey, Mel, do you agree to the treaty, da, da, da,
Yeah.
da. You get your confirmation, you get the other 2 witnesses, and you really could probably do 10 people in 15 minutes. And then that's the same video for everybody. To
Conveyor
upload.
belt.
Yep. I don't know if you'd want to do it as high as like 10, but I think definitely something like, 3 to 5 makes perfect sense. And that, because it's such a pain. My God, organizing people all over the world. And now
Yeah,
you got
it
4
is.
people, on every call. But it would be
I think
great
it's
if we
not
just
easy, yeah.
built a
It's not
process
easy.
for that. So there's a project, right? I mean, that's something that really does need to be done. It would make everything easier. It's in all of our interests to have the invitation process be efficient, right? To make sure that there's witnesses available at all times. And
I mean, also, even if like you're in the same vicinity, if as you say, you've got different countries, as you say, there's the issue of time zones, etc. Isn't
sure. Yeah, we could organize it that way too. Hey, I'm in such and such time zone. You put up your time frames when you're available. Because I mean, I would see people doing that. I'd probably throw myself on there for a few hours a week, because that's all you'd have to do. Even, I mean, there's enough of us almost now, but quickly we just, okay, Tuesday from 3 to 5, GMT, Friday from 4 to 6, whatever. And with enough of those, you could probably fit into them as the inviter and go, okay, I've got 2 people available from 4 to 6 on Wednesday. Great. Now I just got to get my other people to be ready. And, but yeah, those are good examples, things that need to be done. We had a bunch of work done on the website, and that was Ray. But now, his Energios project, he's had a bunch of stuff going on there and other personal stuff. And I mean, he spent months, put a lot of hours into building both of the websites, because he built eoscommunity.org and then Eden on EOS. But they need ongoing work, and Clarion folks are definitely there. But again, we don't want heavy duty C++ smart contract devs, right? Those types working on web work. It's a different discipline. They're typically capable. But we really want designers, right? UX, UI people.
Oh, yeah.
We need front end.
And when you want work done, how do you go about getting it? So
exactly,
that's the problem, isn't it?
Right.
See, we need a location to upload. These are the jobs, and someone else can go to it and say, yeah, I'm up to doing that. I'll bid for it. Be simple.
Right.
It takes a lot of administration away.
It does.
That could be nice to have on eoscommunity.org or on edeneos.org. I don't know what is the best website to have that, but that could be the map, like on EOS Marketplace, a map where you can see the geographical map with the people that are offering their services, showing their spot and pushing one service that they want to deliver. A special one special on your spot that you want to deliver, because you can have 10 services, but you want to go with first one services that will be very appealing.
I think it's more important to have the work that you want, obviously the work that needs to be done first.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we're going to have thousands and thousands of different potentially.
Yeah, the bidding's going to have to be separate. You're right. Because let's just face it, crypto's riddled with people.
Yeah, maybe it's
now,
too early to do that. Yeah,
we can tie that into Eden membership eventually, which I think will make that easier. And definitely, there's been a lot of conversation that we obviously want.
Yeah, I forget to say at which phase we have to go with that. Maybe it's not this phase to go with that. That will be
Ano-
later
another
on
thing-
when we are into. Yeah.
Another thing is that if people want to sort of promote themselves, that'd be a good idea that they have to pay to put their company up there as another option.
True. Yeah,
Another
no,
option.
I've been talking about that. I mean, because again, I'll keep beating this tree for days, but I don't want us relying on outside funding, period.
No,
I think that's a death sentence. That's not censorship resistant, first of all, right? We can't be. We have to be self-sustaining. And if we're creating enough value, that shouldn't be hard. Like any, we'll call it a concern, because this isn't just a business, it's a concern, it's an ongoing operation. But if we're creating the value that we all believe we can create through this, that shouldn't be too difficult. There should be ways that we can do that. At the very minimum, be attractive enough that people are donating, right? Just flat out donating, just going, okay,
Donate,
there's no contract, there's no commitment, just, wow, look what these folks are doing. And, we know that people can be quite generous when they feel like there's things that mean something. There's lots of charitable donations around the world that happen. But I don't necessarily only want to be in that game either, though, because that can get complicated. And there'll certainly be people who, especially if they want to make big donations, probably want tax concerns for that, because most countries offer that. Now you've got to have some sort of nonprofit, but we can get complex as we go out. But one way or another, I just want hope, at least some part of us is of that kind of entrepreneurial mindset of how are we going to derive ongoing income. I see it as like from the nonprofits, right? They manage their assets and they spend what they make, typically their endowment, right? That's what we call it here, at least in the US, right? Universities don't spend all their donations. The big ones manage billions of dollars of assets, and they have stocks and crypto now, some of them, Bitcoin. But in doing that, I think there's some very profitable, I'll call it holistically profitable ways to do that, like funding EOS projects, right, in the ecosystem. But again, that gets a little complex. I sometimes think for people who haven't been steeped in compliance, we can't just, Patrick gets elected. He's got 20,000 EOS. He says, boy, I really want to fund, Everpedia, say, early days, right? I want to fund them. I think they're great. Without an organization, we can't get any contractual relationship with them. We can't accept income back. We can't hold stock. It would be you'd be liable as an individual for all that, right? And that's a nightmare. But I've been looking into the Wyoming DAC structure. That's definitely one that can work. And we've talked about other ways, but again, we're going to need to be organized, and I don't think it'll be too bad. Some of this stuff it sounds worse than it really is. It's a little bit of paperwork typically, but what an awesome thing, right? To eventually have our own EOS VC, right?
Yep.
This thing that
test
we
it now, don't
wanted.
we? Just test it. If we can just test it and work it on a small project.
But eventually we're going to want, we could have people manage this. I mean, that to me, that's such a, like I call it, like a holistic investment, right?
Yeah.
It serves exactly why we're here, bringing value to EOS, growing the EOS community, growing the value of the EOS token, and creating sustainable funding mechanisms.
Some sustainable.
This is
did
the
you
start.
say that
This is the start of EOS.
flow of money? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In a way, yeah. We are.
Cash
We're
flow.
restarting.
Cash
This
flow.
is the start. This is the start.
But then doing other things, right? Like, I hope that we'll have people in our ranks that are eventually, excellent, say, money managers or people like that, right? Who could possibly do some, maybe, crypto investing on behalf of the, organization.
A lot kind of good at that.
Yeah, buy Bitcoin. Buy a shitload of Bitcoin and sit on it.
Exactly.
That's brilliant. It's great when you have the money for it. Yeah. Nah, they've shown, I know, I have to say, they've shown a lot of support so far. They definitely seem to be trying, from everything I've heard, They want to fund this. They want to support this. You know,
I'm sure they will.
you know,
Sure.
and yeah, I'd say I'd be very surprised if when it's all said and done, you know, they don't give anything, which I don't think is going to happen. But it does bring us back to it. It looks like I think I found a way to go about the block producer thing. So, you know, we got a little bit of 15 minutes here left with our time, but I'd love to ask this group's opinion after we've had some time to digest it. I was kind of told that the way to do it is go out there, you know, create the whole block producer, you know, account. And until we're in the top 21, don't run a node. Just don't bother, because it's not like it sounds, right? It's not a zombie account where you're just using your EOS to pay yourself. The money's going to Eden, right? So that block producer is doing something. It's just not necessarily running a node at that stage, but it's, you know, contributing to the EOS community to grow value for EOS. I mean, what if every block producer did this? Hell, we'd be singing a different story right now, right?
Clearly.
So that was the idea. Do that, you know, get block one's vote. That's been committed. And then once we reach the top 21, then we put together a node, but we use that to put together consensus, of course, you know, get feedback from all the other BPs and all we know. We've got people like Aaron and others, but the consummate node, if you will, like what's the ideal, so we can like set this example too, right? Here's the hardware. Here's the types of, you know, you're running APIs or you're running history, right? All of this stuff. And of course, you know, no, we won't be paying for votes, you know, none of that, right? But also then put together an Eden proxy so that all of us members hopefully will put whatever EOS we have between us toward the Eden BP's votes, right? Because that's in our interest to vote for it. But then, hey, it's the system, it's game theory, it's where we're at. Shop around, find out which BP nodes in the top 21 are paying the best rewards, and take those rewards and go directly into the treasury too. So we'd have the block producer directly getting BP rewards, and then a proxy getting voting rewards.
Sounds good, but would people vote if they're not getting these kickbacks?
That's the question. I don't know.
I don't think they will, personally.
We got 30 votes, right? I don't know how the kickbacks work. I have never done it. So, I mean.
So I vote for proxy. I used to vote for Colin Talks Crypto.
Okay.
And then it all went the other way, obviously, with who you vote for. Because I think Colin had two proxies. One was you obviously get paid, and one you didn't. So I'd be silly not to go that route. So I went that route, and I think most people did.
But you were then allowed to vote with other proxies, correct? 'Cause you have 30 votes, or all your votes there.
I put all my votes in with Colin Talks Crypto.
Right.
He chose the best ones he thought,
Gotcha.
and I was kind of in agreement with what he chose anyway.
Right.
And I'm getting some obviously money value coming back.
Some voting
I think-
rewards, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people will prefer that. So that's my only concern. I mean, obviously, I think I'd love to think that everyone would go that route, but I really don't think they will.
Right. Well, then maybe we'd have to modify. Maybe we just have to find out what's attractive. Would people be willing to give up a little?
Yeah,
Right.
I think
Maybe
they would.
10%.
Yeah, I think they
Right.
would, yeah.
Something like that. You know, listen,
Mhm.
once we get something like that organized, it's not going to be too difficult to run. Right. I mean, you got to set your votes and do all that. And you'll obviously need to do some research to make sure you're kind of optimizing, because I'd also want there to be some layer of ethics personally, that we're not only going for the best. You know, I haven't done my research in a while, but if there's any top 21 BPs that are paying amazing rewards but are doing terrible things, then I wouldn't want us to vote for them.
No,
hopefully.
exactly.
But in general, optimize our votes, Eden values, we'll call it, get the rewards, pay X amount back to the people contributing to the proxy. It's a business, right? And that's what I'm saying. These are businesses, though. This is sustainable. Whatever it is, maybe it only turns out to be at first 1,000 EOS a month. I don't know, right? 500. Hey,
I think that's
it's sustainable.
I don't think
Right.
it really matters too much about the value. I think it's more about trying to change other block producers the way they work. So maybe we could
Some
yeah,
of that. Yep.
that'd
Yeah.
be
The
good.
more influential we become,
Yeah.
you know, we can start again when we publish our criteria, for example, which is probably how I would want to do it. We don't vote for anybody who does this.
Yeah.
And this are the attributes we're looking for. These are the things we support and we want to encourage. Yeah. I mean, hey,
The more
if
votes we
that
get,
proxies
the better.
100 million EOS at some point, right? You're definitely going to have some sway.
That's it. Exactly.
So, you know, right. It's kind of like low hanging fruit stuff, but you know, just little ways to start getting things going. So yeah, I'm going to do a tryout. I'm going to do a tryout with the BP.
Is it going to be much work for you guys to do to get that running?
I think it's going to work great. I'm going to put it out there as an 80-20. You know, I already have support. I know I'm going to get Block One's vote. I think it's reasonable for me to hold back 20% to cover fees, costs, time, energy, taxes, you know, different things I'm going to have to do. So that's why I pulled back at first when I started looking at how, you know, because again, it's complicated how you got to handle the money. I'm going to try the way I'm going to do it. First of all, is it's going to be a smart contract that automatically diverts X number of the awards, right? So nobody's reliant on me to make a payment. You know, it's going to just, the BP rewards come in, you know, 80% goes to the Eden account, done deal, auditable contract, everybody will be able to see it. So that you don't have to trust me on that part at all. And then 20% is going to accumulate to cover things and set up, and I got to pay somebody to do the smart, all that. And then eventually that same thing, even when we get into the top 21, because the rewards should be comparable, out of that 20%, I pay for the node, I pay for all that stuff, you know, all the admin, whatever I need to do. I'm gonna third party it, basically. I'm gonna subcontract it to a good group that I know. So I'm gonna put it out there. It's gonna at least make money, even with Block One's vote, and then it's gonna be up to you guys to decide whether or not you want to support it with your votes. You know, but the BP is definitely not going to pay voter rewards. It's just, I for now at least, I don't want to get into that game.
So this is a priority one task, I would guess.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get it done ASAP. I mean, hopefully within a week. It's all going to depend on. I just got to try to grab smart contract dev. It's not a complicated smart contract, but you know, it needs to be right.
I'm just wondering what other P1 tasks there are.
Well, the elections, really. I mean, because that's so much, you know, you want to talk about, we're out there saying we want to get funding, we want to get engagement. If we can't get people to participate, we're kind of a little dead in the water, right? So it's membership, all of us trying to do the best. Like we talked about earlier, I think something that we need to do better communicating to people is that the newest members are typically the best option to expand, right? Because hopefully, if someone like myself or other people who were part of the first few, I've invited a lot of the people, I think, right? That well's going to run dry. So the hope is, as you're bringing in new members, they have a different social network. They have a different group of invitees. So it's up to us to then support them as witnesses, right? Make that easy on them. But likely we're not the inviters for lots of reasons. I mean, you kind of don't want anybody to become a super inviter, right? You wouldn't, you guys wouldn't be happy right now. 50 of the members were all invited by me.
No.
Would you? No, you'd feel like horse shit. Dom's half the people are in his pocket, basically.
It should be really a maximum number really set in stone.
Well, that's at least we did agree to that and held to it by all accounts. I know some people have looked at it, but for the first group of, I think it was 20, you know, you couldn't sit in on more than 15 total events, and that was stuck to, as far as I know. But then at 100, it was like, okay, let's just open it up. And I think it's something that right now is a case by case. I don't think we're too concerned. I also think it would become it would become obvious too, right? And what would that do again for your reputation? would any of us vote for somebody who clearly tried to stuff the membership with disingenuous invites?
Yeah.
I wouldn't, you know. And we have removal, right? We have the ability to do that. I mean, I would personally consider that to be an attack.
If you get a few bad actors, and that it's obviously when we go to find out who actually introduced the guys in the first place,
Exactly.
you keep coming up as the person
Yeah.
who introduced them.
Exactly.
You're going to get the heave-ho yourself.
Yeah, you're not going to last long. So,
No.
you know, but in general, you know, definitely the best thing we can all be doing right now is inviting new members, top priority. If you know of anybody who fits our qualifications, please get those going. Secondary, act as a witness to help others to bring them in. And then I'd say 1A in some degree is election. If you haven't signed up yet, please just do so. I'm hoping I can rely on our existing members to participate, at least most of you. And then, of course, this one is open. And I probably think it's going to be close to the last that's going to be this wide open, because I just don't know how we would hold one once everything's being done in the membership portal, right? How do you get a non-member? I mean, I don't know, maybe they can create guest accounts to try it. That might be possible. So I'm not, never say never, but for now, it's definitely the best opportunity for someone to engage in an Eden election, try it out with the least amount of commitment, right? Except to just show up and go through the process. And you can be eligible. Anybody's eligible for election too. Let's make that clear.
I was reading in the FAQ, what is the purpose of the trial election? And it is stated, with any new governance process and technology, it is important to test and debug the methodology before scaling it to a much larger membership. A small-scale voting test will allow us to learn from any mistakes and further refine the process. So how it is stated on edeneos.org into the FAQ, what is the purpose of the trial election? It is not about the numbers. It is about the really test the process and
but
see
is the numbers though, because the numbers test, right? We want to test it
how
with
it is
large
stated,
groups.
it is said that it is not totally the priority, the numbers. It's to test the process to see if we can reach a consensus in a group.
It's inherent though, Patrick, don't please. It's about the numbers, people, please. We want to test scale. We want to test what it's like with a large number. How else are we going to know, right? Because the mechanism's already been tested, the basic consensus once. It worked. You know, we want to see, does it work with large numbers? Or does it start to become problematic? So right now, this one's about scale. It may not say, I wrote that, I can rewrite it. But this selection is very much about numbers. You know, because that's just, I know that's what the devs want to see. You know, we want to know, like, does this break down?
Isn't it? The next test.
Yeah.
So
I've been tasked to get hopefully at least, like I said, 128 minimum actual participants showing up.
For the 17?
Yes. Because
How
we
many?
want to see 128.
128.
Yes.
We're doing binary now, are we?
And if there is no 128, we do or we don't do?
No, minimum of 64. We do it anyway.
Ah, okay,
Yes.
okay.
But we really need to get.
I will be
hopefully to
already
that-
happy.
Hopefully, to
I
get
speak
to
for
that
myself,
number.
sorry.
Right.
I speak for
Yeah.
myself.
I won't be. I will have failed. So I've been
You
tasked to get
don't
a
will be there
minimum.
if there is only 64 people.
Yeah, I'm fired. If there's only 64, so I gotta
But
find a way. to
sorry,
get it.
to I heard you well. I listened to you. Sorry. So how you speak now, it is not how it is stated on edeneos.org. If you go to the FAQ and you arrive on this particular question,
I
what
understand.
is the goal of the trial election? I have read now exactly what is written, and you
Echo,
speak
Patrick,
exactly
I wrote it. I wrote it. I
the
wrote those
inverse.
words that are on the website. I get it,
Yeah.
and I understand your interpretation. I appreciate it. I will. That's a general thing about trial elections. What I'm stating is
Okay.
this particular one, we are trying to test scale. That's all. So I'm
Okay.
trying to deliver on that. The development
Okay.
team
So
wants
other question, very
120.
very basic for me because I am more a developer than a governance guy. So about the BPs and the proxy, we have the possibility to go with a proxy for the funds for Eden on EOS. We can also have the proxy plus the BPs, or we could have only the BPs. But I think only the BPs. What is the sentiment around the top 21 BPs? Are they ready to do something to fund Eden on EOS, or what is the general sentiment?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I'm sure they will.
I don't ask the names.
0.25%.
I just ask the general.
No, I
sentiment.
literally don't. I haven't heard any feedback about
Okay,
that.
okay. And block one?
Like I said earlier, I think it's probable. Yeah, I do
Okay.
think it's probable. All right, everybody. We've reached 8. I'm gonna go. But appreciate everybody's time and energy. I know it's a small group for now, but this is how it starts. And the stuff will be posted. I'm working on doing a better job of getting the recordings to people, and Brandon Lovejoy is going to be kind of just creating a bit of a better process for uploading videos and content. So just FYI, if anybody out there was planning on like making some videos or any content, I encourage you to connect with Brandon. He'll make
Yeah.
it easy for you to get them where you probably want them to be.
Put it on the freelancers tool.
Mhm.
Put it on
Yeah,
the
for
right,
freelancers
example-
tool.
right. Yeah.
For example, if you go on Reddit group, there is the Reddit group EOS. So if you go on the Reddit EOS, there is now a menu named, there are different menus, but there are one Eden EOS portal,
Oh, cool.
Eden EOS mind map also,
Mhm.
all to make some synthetic information into one place with different data source. So that can help. And there is the video. I have put all what I have find that is very interesting to go straight to the point if we have to go on EOS or on Eden to onboard easily, to know what is the requirement. Because if you are someone new and you don't know where is Eden, you don't know where is edeneos.org exactly.
Right.
You know, don't know where is exactly eoscommunity.org. There is also the Notions.
Mhm.
So you could be very rapidly lost if you have something very structured, something not so complicated, that should not be so complicated, and you have already directly the links to the things. That will be very easy to go.
Cool.
I saw that with this Asian girl today. With all her art, she wanted to onboard, but she was not aware of all the detail, and
Yeah.
that was going very well. Also,
Okay.
the links that she has put
It's
into
going to
the
grow as
profile.
well, isn't it? It's going to
Yeah.
get bigger.
Hey, Patrick, I got to cut you off, man. I've been on for 2
Sorry.
hours. I gotta wrap up. My kids are waiting for me. Thank you guys. Thank you for your support.
And well done, Switzerland in the football.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
Oh yeah,
Bye,
we
guys.
have win. We have won. We have win. Yeah.
Well done.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Thank you.